The emergency beacon screamed through the darkness of space, cutting through the silence like a blade. Marcus Chen, a former Earth military engineer turned freelance mechanic, barely had time to look up from his welding torch before the alien ship crashed into the docking bay of Station Omega-7. The impact shook the entire structure. Marcus dropped his tools and ran toward the smoking wreckage, his heavy boots clanging against the metal floor. Through the twisted metal and sparking wires, he could see movement inside the cockpit. "Anyone alive in there?" he shouted, grabbing an emergency fire extinguisher to clear the smoke. A weak voice answered, speaking in accented but clear standard. "Please, help!" Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a plasma cutter from his tool belt and began slicing through the jammed cockpit door. The metal glowed orange-hot as he worked, sweat dripping down his face despite the station's cooling systems. Years of military training had taught him to act first and ask questions later when lives were at stake. The door finally gave way with a metallic shriek. Inside, Marcus found something that made him freeze. The pilot wasn't human. She had deep purple skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, 4 arms that ended in delicate 3-fingered hands, and large eyes that took up nearly half her face. Those eyes, currently filled with pain and desperation, were a swirling mix of gold and silver. She was a Vraxian. Marcus had heard of them but never seen one in person. They were known as one of the most advanced species in the Galactic Council, proud warriors and diplomats who rarely ventured into the outer rim stations where humans worked. "Please," she gasped, golden blood seeping from a gash on her forehead. "My child." That's when Marcus noticed the small bundle clutched protectively against her chest with her lower arms. The fabric moved slightly, and a tiny hand emerged, also purple, but lighter in shade, reaching out blindly. "I've got you," Marcus said, his voice gentle despite the urgency. He carefully helped the Vraxian mother out of the cockpit, supporting her weight as she stumbled. She was taller than him by at least a foot, but injured and weak. "Medical bay is this way," he said, but she gripped his arm with surprising strength. "No, they're coming," she whispered. "The Korthax. They want my baby." Marcus had heard that name before. The Korthax were raiders, slavers who preyed on ships in the outer systems. They were known for their cruelty and their particular interest in capturing young aliens from powerful species. A Vraxian child would be worth a fortune on the black market. "How long?" he asked. "Minutes, maybe less." Her golden eyes locked onto his brown ones. "I know what humans can do. I've heard the stories. Please, protect my baby." Marcus glanced around the nearly empty docking bay. Station Omega-7 was a backwater refueling post. Security consisted of 2 bored guards who were probably sleeping at their posts. If Korthax raiders were coming, they wouldn't stand a chance. "What's your name?" he asked, already making calculations in his head. "Commander Zarathea of the 3rd Fleet," she managed. "And this is Kira." She looked down at the bundle in her arms with such love that Marcus felt his heart clench. "I'm Marcus. Come on, Commander. We need to move." He half-carried her to his workshop, a cluttered space filled with half-repaired ships and salvaged parts. It wasn't much, but it was defensible. He helped her sit on a crate and grabbed his old military med kit. "Let me look at that head wound," he said, but she shook her head. "No time. Listen. Human. Marcus." She shifted the baby in her arms, and Marcus got his first good look at the child. Little Kira had her mother's purple skin and large eyes, but there was an innocence there that made Marcus's protective instincts flare. "The Korthax killed my mate," Zarathea continued. "They've been hunting us across 3 systems. I thought I'd lost them, but—" She winced as another wave of pain hit her. "I'm hurt worse than I thought. Internal damage. I won't be able to fight." Marcus finished scanning her with his medical scanner, and his face went grim. She was right. The readings showed massive internal bleeding. Without proper medical facilities, she had maybe an hour. We can... No. Her voice was firm despite her weakness. Listen to me. I am Commander Zarathea of the Third Fleet, daughter of Admiral Vexara, heir to the House of Storms. My rank, my titles, my authority, I will transfer them all to you if you protect Kira. Marcus blinked in surprise. He knew enough about Vraxian culture to understand what she was offering. Their society was built on complex hierarchies and sworn oaths. For her to offer her rank to an outsider, a human no less, was unprecedented. Commander, I don't need... You don't understand, she interrupted. Kira is special. She's not just my daughter. She's the key to peace. Her father was Telnari, the first successful hybrid between our species. If she lives, if she grows up, she could unite our peoples. But if the Korthax take her... The implications hit Marcus like a punch. The Vraxians and Telnari had been in a cold war for decades. A child of both species would be either a symbol of unity or a tool for destruction, depending on who controlled her. A loud bang echoed through the station. The Korthax had arrived. They'll dock at Bay 3, Marcus said, his military training taking over. That gives us maybe 5 minutes before they trace your ship here. He looked at Zarathea. Can you shoot? She tried to lift one of her upper arms and winced. Not well, but I can still... No! Marcus was already moving, pulling out weapons from hidden compartments in his workshop. You hold Kira. I'll handle the Korthax. You're one human against a raiding party. Marcus smiled grimly as he checked the charge on an old plasma rifle. Yeah, well, they've probably never faced a human who's got something worth protecting. He grabbed several other weapons, strapping them to his body with practiced efficiency. Then he began setting up defensive positions, using his workshop equipment to create barriers and choke points. Marcus? Zarathea called softly. He turned to see her holding out Kira. Hold her. Just for a moment. You need to understand what you're fighting for. Marcus hesitated, then carefully took the baby. Kira was lighter than he expected, warm and soft. Her large eyes opened and looked up at him, and tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. Something deep inside Marcus shifted. Hey there, little one, he whispered. Don't worry. Uncle Marcus isn't going to let anyone hurt you. He handed Kira back to her mother and saw tears in Zarathea's eyes. I was right about you, she said. The stories are true. Humans will fight harder for others than for themselves. It's kind of our thing, Marcus replied. He could hear heavy footsteps in the corridor now, multiple contacts moving fast. Commander, whatever happens, keep Kira quiet. There's a hidden compartment behind that welding station. If things go bad... They won't, Zarathea said firmly. I've seen what humans can do when they're protecting someone. My vow stands, Marcus Chen. Save my daughter and everything I am. Everything I have is yours. Marcus checked his weapons one more time. The footsteps were getting closer. He could hear the guttural voices of the Korthax, discussing their search pattern. Commander, he said, not looking back. Tell me about Vraxian marriage customs later. Right now I've got some raiders to introduce to human stubbornness. The door to his workshop exploded inward. 3 Korthax raiders stormed in, their reptilian faces twisted in anticipation of easy prey. They found Marcus Chen instead. The first raider went down before he could even raise his weapon. Marcus's plasma rifle took him center mass, the bolt of energy sending the 7-foot-tall alien flying backward into his companions. Evening, gentlemen, Marcus said conversationally, already moving to new cover. I'm afraid this workshop is closed. The remaining Korthax roared in anger and opened fire. Energy bolts sizzled through the air where Marcus had been standing, but he was already gone, using his smaller size and knowledge of the workshop to his advantage. Spread out! One of them snarled in their harsh language. Find the Vraxian! Marcus popped up behind a heavy tool cabinet and fired twice more. One shot grazed a raider's shoulder, spinning him around. The other punched through a piece of equipment, showering the area with sparks. "You know," Marcus called out, "I spent 6 years fighting in the colonial wars. You want to know what I learned?" He rolled behind a different barrier as energy fire tracked his voice. "I learned that everyone thinks humans are weak because we're small, because we don't have claws or natural armor. But you know what we do have?" A Korthax raider tried to flank him. Marcus had been expecting it. He grabbed a plasma torch from his belt and activated it just as the alien rounded the corner. The superheated blade caught the raider in the knee, dropping him with a howl of pain. "We have spite," Marcus finished, kicking the wounded raider's weapon away. "Pure, stubborn, beautiful spite." More Korthax were entering the workshop now. Marcus counted at least 6 more, all heavily armed. The odds were getting worse by the second. That's when he heard it. Kira crying. The baby's wail cut through the sounds of battle, and Marcus saw one of the raiders' heads snap toward the sound. "There!" the raider shouted. "The child is there!" "No," Marcus growled. Something cold and dangerous filled his chest. These aliens thought they could come into his workshop, his home, and threaten a baby under his protection. They were about to learn why humans were the only species to ever fight a war against themselves and somehow have both sides lose and win at the same time. Marcus stopped hiding. He stood up right in the open, plasma rifle raised. "You want the kid?" he shouted. "You go through me!" The Korthax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One human? You think you can stop us all?" "No," Marcus admitted. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that his old squad used to say meant someone was about to have a very bad day. "But I can make it cost you." He opened fire, not wild shots, but controlled, precise bursts. Each one forced the raiders to find cover, kept them from advancing. Marcus walked forward steadily, placing himself between them and where Zarathea was hidden with Kira. A plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Pain flared through his body, but he kept firing. Another hit his leg, dropping him to one knee. Still, he kept shooting. "Is one child worth this?" a raider called out. "You're dying for nothing, human." "Wrong," Marcus gasped, tasting blood. "I'm dying for everything." He thought about Kira's tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. He thought about Zarathea's desperate trust. He thought about all the times in human history when one person stood up and said, "No more." The Korthax advanced, confident now that he was wounded. They didn't notice Marcus had been hurting them, using his own pain to draw them into a specific position. "You know what else I learned in the war?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. "Always have a backup plan." He shot the support beam he'd been aiming for all along. The beam, already weakened by his plasma torch earlier, gave way with a shriek of metal. Tons of equipment and ceiling panels came crashing down directly onto the grouped Korthax raiders. Marcus rolled aside just in time, crying out as the movement jarred his wounds. When the dust settled, most of the raiders were trapped or crushed under the debris. But not all of them. The leader, larger than the others with scales that gleamed like oil, had avoided the trap. He stalked toward Marcus, who was struggling to reload his rifle with blood-slick fingers. "Clever human," the Korthax leader hissed, "but cleverness won't save you now." He kicked the rifle from Marcus's hands and grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Where is the child?" the leader demanded. Marcus, choking, still managed to spit blood in the alien's face. "Go to hell!" The Korthax snarled and threw Marcus across the room. He hit the wall hard and slumped to the ground, vision going dark around the edges. This was it. He'd failed. The Korthax would find Kira and... No! The voice was weak but carried absolute authority. Zarathea emerged from hiding. Kira held protectively in her lower arms while her upper arms struggled to hold Marcus's dropped plasma rifle. "You will not touch them," she said. The Korthax leader laughed. A dying Vraxian and a broken human. What can you do? Zarathia's eyes began to glow. I am Commander Zarathia of the House of Storms, and you made me break my word. Marcus, barely conscious, watched in amazement as electricity began to dance across Zarathia's skin. He'd heard that some Vraxians could channel bioelectric energy, but it was supposed to be a rare gift. I promised this human my rank, my vow, my heart if he protected my child, Zarathia continued, her voice gaining strength even as her body trembled. And he has earned all three. You will not make me a liar. The Korthax leader raised his weapon, but Zarathia was faster. Lightning erupted from her body, not the controlled bolts of a trained warrior, but the wild, desperate fury of a mother protecting her young. The energy engulfed the Korthax leader, sending him convulsing to the ground. But the effort was too much. Zarathia collapsed, the rifle clattering from her hands. Kira wailed in her arms. Marcus forced himself to move. Every inch was agony. But he crawled across the floor to where they lay. The Korthax leader was still twitching, but no longer a threat. In the distance, he could hear station alarms finally going off. "Commander!" he whispered, reaching them. Zarathia's eyes fluttered open. The golden color was fading, replaced by a dull bronze. "Marcus, did we—" "We did," he assured her. "Kira's safe. Help is coming." She smiled weakly and pressed Kira into his arms. "Then I can keep my promise, Marcus Chen, by my authority as commander. I grant you my rank in the Vraxian fleet. By my word as heir to the House of Storms, I bind my daughter to your protection. And by my heart," she reached up with trembling fingers to touch his face, "by my heart, I name you father to my child and keeper of my legacy. Do you accept?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I accept." Zarathia's smile widened. "Then by Vraxian law, you are family. Tell Kira. Tell her about her parents. Both of them." Her eyes closed for the last time just as station security burst into the workshop. Marcus held Kira close as medics swarmed around them. The baby had stopped crying and was looking up at him with those large, trusting eyes. "Don't worry, little one," he whispered. "I made a promise, and humans, we're really stubborn about keeping those." 6 months had passed since the attack on Station Omega-7. Marcus Chen sat in the newly renovated workshop, carefully adjusting a tiny mechanical toy while Kira watched from her specially designed crib. The purple-skinned baby gurgled with delight as the toy spun, its lights creating patterns on the ceiling. "You like that, huh?" Marcus said softly, reaching down to let her grab his finger. "Your mom would have said I'm spoiling you." The workshop looked different now. Cleaner, more organized, with an entire section converted into a nursery. Baby monitors and defensive systems sat side by side on the shelves. It was the strangest combination of military paranoia and parental devotion anyone had ever seen. The door chimed, and Marcus tensed before recognizing the visitor through the security feed. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the station's chief medical officer and one of the few people Marcus trusted near Kira. "Come in, Doc," he called, not moving from Kira's side. Sarah entered, her dark skin glowing under the workshop lights. She carried a medical bag in one hand and a data pad in the other. "How's our little princess today?" "Growing like a weed," Marcus replied. "I swear she's bigger every morning." Sarah ran her scanner over Kira, nodding approvingly. "Vraxian Telnari hybrids are supposed to have accelerated early development. She's right on track." She paused, looking at Marcus. "How are you doing?" Marcus flexed his shoulder, still stiff from the plasma burn. "Fine." "That's not what I meant, and you know it." He sighed. Sarah had been pestering him about his mental state for months. "I'm fine, Sarah, really." "You haven't left this workshop except for supply runs. You've turned down 3 job offers from major shipping companies. And you've installed enough weaponry in here to take on a small fleet." "Can you blame me?" Marcus gestured to Kira, who was now chewing on her own foot with remarkable flexibility. The Korthax knew about her. That means others might too. Sarah sat down on a nearby crate. Have you thought about what Commander Zarathea offered you, about claiming her rank and titles? Marcus had thought about little else. The Vraxian military codes which he'd been studying were clear. By accepting Zarathea's final gift, he was technically now a commander in their fleet, but claiming that rank would mean leaving Omega-7, taking Kira to Vraxian space, where she'd be both safer and in more danger. It's complicated, he said finally. Most things involving you are, Sarah replied with a smile. Then her expression grew serious. Marcus, there's something else. A ship arrived this morning. Vraxian diplomatic vessel. Marcus was on his feet instantly, moving to position himself between Kira and the door. Why didn't station security tell me? Because I asked them not to. I wanted to check them out first. Sarah held up her hand as Marcus reached for a weapon. They're legitimate. They're here about Kira. And you. Before Marcus could respond, his security system alerted him to approaching visitors. 3 figures appeared on the monitor, all Vraxian, wearing elaborate ceremonial armor that made Zarathea's simple flight suit look plain by comparison. They're here, Sarah said unnecessarily. Marcus looked at Kira, who chose that moment to blow a spit bubble and laugh at her own cleverness. Okay, little one. Time to meet your mom's people. Be good, okay? Kira responded by grabbing his finger again and trying to put it in her mouth. The door chimed. Marcus took a deep breath and opened it. The 3 Vraxians stood in perfect formation. The one in the center was older, with purple skin so dark it was almost black, and scars crisscrossing her face. Her 4 arms were positioned in what Marcus had learned was a formal greeting stance. Marcus Chen, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. I am Admiral Vexara of the 3rd Fleet. I believe you knew my daughter. Marcus's throat went dry. Zarathea's mother, Kira's grandmother, and one of the most powerful military leaders in Vraxian space. Admiral, he said, inclining his head respectfully. I'm sorry for your loss. Something flickered in the Admiral's eyes. May we enter? We have much to discuss. Marcus stepped aside, acutely aware of how his cluttered workshop must look to these dignified visitors. But Admiral Vexara's attention went immediately to the crib where Kira was trying to eat her own tail. The Admiral's stern expression softened infinitesimally. She has her mother's eyes. And her father's curiosity, Marcus added. She tries to put everything in her mouth. That would be the Telnari influence, one of the other Vraxians said with what might have been amusement. They explore the world through taste when young. Admiral Vexara moved closer to the crib, and Marcus had to fight his instinct to get between them. The Admiral noticed his tension. You protect her well, she observed, even from her own blood. No offense intended, Admiral. None taken. In fact, it confirms what I've heard about you. She turned to face him fully. Station security provided us with the recordings of the attack. We know what you did, what you sacrificed, and we know what my daughter offered you in her final moments. Marcus remained silent, waiting. By Vraxian law, you are now Kira's legal guardian. More than that, you hold my daughter's rank and position. You are technically heir to the House of Storms. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. This is unprecedented. I didn't ask for any of that, Marcus said. I just wanted to keep her safe. Which is precisely why Zarathea chose you. The Admiral reached into the crib, and Kira immediately grabbed one of her fingers with both hands. She saw something in you. The same thing I see now. What's that? Someone who would die before letting harm come to this child. Someone who doesn't care about politics or power, only about protection. She gently extracted her finger from Kira's grip. The question is, what do you intend to do now? Marcus had been dreading this question. I don't know. I've been reading about Vraxian law and customs. I know Kira needs to be registered with your government. I know she has a claim to titles and properties. But I also know taking her to Vraxian space makes her a target. You've done your research, the Admiral approved. Yes, there are those who would see Kira as a threat. A hybrid child with claims to both Vraxian and Telnari nobility? Some would prefer she disappear. Then she stays here, Marcus said firmly. On this backwater station? Hidden away like some shameful secret? The Admiral's voice hardened. She is the daughter of heroes. She deserves better. She deserves to be alive, Marcus shot back. And I can protect her here. Can you? The Admiral gestured around the workshop. You fought off one raiding party. What happens when they send 20? 50? What happens when Kira needs education in her abilities? What happens when she asks about her heritage? Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. I'll figure it out. I promised her mother. You promised my daughter you'd protect Kira. But protection isn't just about weapons and walls, human. It's about giving her the chance to become who she's meant to be. They stared at each other, neither backing down. It was Kira who broke the tension by starting to cry, her wails filling the workshop. Marcus immediately moved to pick her up, but Admiral Vexara was faster. The older Vraxian lifted Kira with practiced ease, all four arms working in concert to comfort the baby. Shh, little Storm, she murmured in Vraxian. Your grandmother is here. Marcus watched, transfixed, as Kira almost immediately calmed. The Admiral held her with a gentleness that seemed at odds with her warrior bearing. She knows you, Marcus said quietly. The blood knows blood, the Admiral replied. Just as she knows you, though you share none. She looked at Marcus over Kira's head. That is the real gift my daughter gave you. Not rank or titles, but recognition. You are her father now. In all ways that matter. I don't know how to be a Vraxian father. Then be a human one. From what I've seen, that might be exactly what she needs. The Admiral carefully handed Kira back to Marcus. But she also needs her heritage, both sides of it. Marcus held Kira close, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. What are you proposing? Come with us, the Admiral said. Not permanently. A visit to the Vraxian homeworld. Let Kira be registered properly. Let her meet her extended family. Let us teach you about her potential abilities and needs. Then, if you still wish it, return here. And if someone tries to hurt her... Admiral Vexara smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then they will learn why the House of Storms has never lost a war, and why humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at them. Marcus looked down at Kira, who was now playing with the collar of his shirt. 6 months ago, he'd been a simple mechanic, content to fix ships and be left alone. Now he was being asked to navigate alien politics and unknown dangers, but Kira yawned, showing tiny teeth just beginning to emerge, and snuggled against him with complete trust. One condition, Marcus said finally. Name it. We take my ship. I've been modifying it. Better weapons, better shields. If we're traveling with Kira, we do it my way. The Admiral raised what served as an eyebrow. You've been modifying a ship for 6 months, without leaving this workshop? I'm good at multitasking. Sarah, who had been silent throughout the exchange, snorted. He's turned a basic shuttle into something that could probably take on a destroyer. I've seen the specs. It's insane. Show me, the Admiral commanded. Marcus led them to the back of the workshop where his ship sat. What had once been a standard human transport now bristled with weapons and armor. The hull had been reinforced with salvaged Korthax plating, and various alien technologies had been integrated into its systems. The shields are a hybrid design, Marcus explained, shifting Kira to one arm so he could point. Vraxian energy matrix with Telnari phase modulation. Figured if she's going to ride in it, it should protect like both her peoples would. The Admiral's aides whispered to each other in amazement, but Vexara herself simply nodded. You built this? Alone? I had help, Marcus admitted. Turns out when you save a baby from raiders, people want to contribute. That weapons array came from a Gorvani merchant who heard the story. The engine modifications were suggested by a Telnari engineer who called it an honor to help protect the bridge child. Bridge child? One of the aides asked. That's what some are calling her, Sarah explained. The child who could bridge two civilizations. Or destroy them both, the Admiral said quietly. Then louder. Your modifications are impressive, Commander Chen. Marcus startled at the title. I'm not. You accepted my daughter's gift. You are. The Admiral's tone brooked no argument. And as a commander in the Vraxian fleet, your request for transportation arrangements is granted. We leave in 3 days. 3 days? Marcus felt panic rise. I need more time. I need to prepare to what? Install more weapons? Set more traps? The Admiral shook her head. At some point, Commander, you must trust that you've done enough, that you are enough. Kira chose that moment to grab Marcus's nose and giggle. He couldn't help but smile. Fine. 3 days. But I'm bringing everything I might need for her. Toys, food, medical supplies. Of course, no Vraxian parent would travel without being overprepared. You'll fit right in. The meeting concluded with formal exchanges and promises to coordinate. As the Vraxians left, Admiral Vexara paused at the door. Commander Chen, my daughter was impulsive, emotional, and often defied tradition. She was also the best judge of character I've ever known. Trust her judgment. Trust yourself. After they left, Marcus slumped in his chair, Kira still in his arms. Sarah sat beside him. You okay? She asked. I'm about to take a baby into space, surrounded by aliens who might want her dead, to a planet I've never seen, to meet people who might hate me for being human. He looked at Sarah. Does that sound okay to you? Sarah laughed. Sounds like parenthood to me. My mother always said raising kids was the scariest adventure she ever had. Marcus looked down at Kira, who was fighting sleep and losing. Your mom got me into this, little one. Think she knew what she was doing? Kira's response was to drool on his shirt and fall asleep. I'll take that as a yes, Marcus murmured. Over the next 3 days, Marcus prepared with the intensity of a man planning an invasion. He packed and repacked supplies, ran diagnostics on every system in his ship, and researched everything he could about Vraxian customs and protocols. Sarah helped when she could, teaching him basic medical procedures for Vraxian Telnari hybrids and making sure he had enough formula to last the journey. Other station residents contributed too. The Gorvani merchant insisted on providing a selection of toys that would stimulate a developing hybrid mind, while the Telnari engineer uploaded star charts and safe routes to the Vraxian homeworld. You've got friends here, Sarah observed on the last night, watching Marcus carefully secure Kira's custom-designed flight seat. Never really thought about it, Marcus admitted. That's because you were too busy thinking about her. Sarah smiled. That's what good parents do. The morning of departure came too quickly. Marcus stood in his ship, Kira secure in her carrier, watching through the viewport as Admiral Vexara's diplomatic vessel prepared to leave. His own ship, which he dubbed Storm's Guardian in honor of both Zarathea and Kira, hummed with ready power. You sure about this? Sarah asked over the comm. Marcus looked at Kira, who was wide awake and seemingly excited about the upcoming adventure. Her large eyes reflected the stars beyond the station, and she reached out as if trying to touch them. No, Marcus said honestly. But she needs this. She needs to know where she comes from, both sides. And if anyone tries to hurt her, they'll learn why humans are the scary ones, Sarah finished. Take care of her, Marcus, and yourself." "Copy that." Marcus engaged the engines, following the Admiral's ship as it pulled away from the station. "Okay, little one, let's go meet your family and maybe figure out what your mom saw in me along the way." As the stars streaked past and they entered hyperspace, Kira made a happy sound and reached for the lights. Marcus smiled and began to tell her a story about a brave Vraxian commander, a stubborn human mechanic, and the baby who brought them together. Behind them, Station Omega-7 grew smaller and smaller, but ahead lay the vast unknown of space and the promise of new adventures. Marcus had faced down raiders and accepted an alien legacy, but his greatest challenge was just beginning, raising Kira to be the bridge between worlds that her mother had envisioned. "Don't worry," he whispered to the sleeping baby as they sailed through the stars. "We'll figure it out together. That's what family does." The ship's computer chimed softly, indicating they were on course for the Vraxian homeworld. Marcus checked their defensive systems one more time. Old habits died hard, then settled in to watch over Kira as she slept. He thought about Zarathia's final words, about rank and vows and hearts. He'd accepted them all without truly understanding what they meant. But looking at Kira now, tiny and perfect, and trusting him completely, Marcus began to understand. This wasn't just about protection or duty. This was about love, the kind that crossed species and defied politics, the kind that made a cynical mechanic rebuild his entire life around a purple baby with 2 large eyes, the kind that made the impossible possible. The Vraxian homeworld hung before them like a jewel carved from storm clouds. Purple and silver atmospheric swirls danced across continents that sparked with constant lightning. Even from orbit, Marcus could feel the raw power of the planet. "Welcome to Vraxis Prime," Admiral Vexara's voice came through the comm. "Follow our lead through the defense grid." Marcus guided his ship carefully, noting how Kira seemed to perk up as they descended. Her skin began to show faint patterns of light, mimicking the electrical displays below. "You feel it, don't you?" Marcus murmured. "This is where your mom came from." The spaceport they landed at was massive, with architecture that seemed to challenge physics. Spires of metal and crystal reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that crackled with energy. And everywhere, Vraxians moved with purpose and grace, their 4 arms allowing them to perform multiple tasks simultaneously. Marcus had barely powered down his engines when a contingent of guards surrounded his ship. He held Kira closer, hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. "Stand down," Admiral Vexara commanded as she approached. "They're an honor guard, not a threat." "Could have fooled me," Marcus muttered, but he relaxed slightly. As they disembarked, Marcus became acutely aware of the stairs. A human carrying a Vraxian baby was apparently not a common sight. Whispers followed them in a language he only partially understood, but he caught words like outsider and impossible and the hybrid child. The Admiral led them through the spaceport to awaiting transport. "The High Council wishes to meet you immediately." "No pressure," Marcus said dryly. Kira chose that moment to spit up on his shirt. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, kiddo." The council chambers were even more imposing than the spaceport. 12 ancient Vraxians sat in a semicircle, their combined age probably measured in millennia. The one in the center, wearing robes that seemed to be made of captured lightning, spoke first. "Marcus Chen," the elder said, voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You claim guardianship of the child Kirathea?" "I don't claim it," Marcus replied, standing straighter. "Her mother gave it to me, with her dying breath." "A claim made in extremis," another council member interjected. "Perhaps not legally binding." Marcus felt anger flare. "Are you calling Commander Zarathea a liar?" The chamber went silent. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. "You dare speak to the High Council with such disrespect?" the first elder asked. I speak as a father defending his daughter's mother's honor, Marcus shot back. If that's disrespectful, then yeah, I dare. Admiral Vexara stepped forward. Perhaps we should discuss this more calmly. No. Marcus was done being calm. I've read your laws. I know Zarathea had the right to designate a guardian. I know her words were witnessed and recorded. So what's this really about? Is it because I'm human? Because Kira's a hybrid? Or because you're scared of what she represents? The Central Elder's eyes narrowed. You think you understand us, human? You've known our ways for mere months. I understand enough, Marcus said. He lifted Kira slightly. I understand that this baby is the future. Your people and the Telnari have been at each other's throats for decades. She could end that, but only if she lives long enough. And you think you can protect her better than her own people? I think I already have. That brought another silence. Finally, a younger council member spoke. Show us! Show you what? Show us why Zarathea chose you. Words are wind. Actions speak truth. Before Marcus could ask what they meant, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Guards rushed in, speaking rapidly in Vraxian. Attack! Admiral Vexara translated, her face grim. Telnari extremists, they're here for Kira. Marcus's response was immediate. He handed Kira to the Admiral. Keep her safe. Where are you going? She demanded. To do what I do best. Marcus was already moving. Protect my daughter! The council chambers erupted into chaos as explosions rocked the building. Through the tall windows, Marcus could see Telnari fighters strafing the city's defenses. On the ground, armed extremists were pushing through the spaceport's security. Marcus ran toward the danger, not away from it. He found the first group of attackers in the main corridor. 3 Telnari warriors, their crystalline armor reflecting the emergency lights. They saw him and laughed. A human? One sneered. They send a single human against us? Nobody sent me, Marcus replied, then moved. The Telnari were fast, their natural agility enhanced by their armor. But Marcus had spent 6 months paranoid and preparing. Every spare moment not caring for Kira had been spent training, remembering, becoming the soldier he'd once been. The first Telnari went down to a move he'd learned fighting insurrectionists on Mars Colony. The second fell to a technique he'd adapted from watching Vraxian combat videos. The third managed to score a hit across Marcus's ribs before Marcus grabbed the alien's own weapon and turned it against him. Impossible! The Telnari gasped as he fell. You'd be surprised what's possible when you're motivated, Marcus said, already moving on. He found more attackers near the council chambers, trying to break through the emergency barriers. This time there were 6 of them, all armed, all focused on their objective. They never saw him coming. Marcus had learned something important during the Korthax attack. Aliens always underestimated humans. They saw the lack of claws, the absence of natural armor, the relatively small size, and they assumed weakness. They never accounted for humanity's real advantage, the ability to turn anything into a weapon, and the stubborn refusal to give up. Marcus used the corridor's architecture against them, bouncing off walls to change direction mid-attack. He used their own weapons when he could take them. His fists and feet when he couldn't. He took hits that would have dropped him 6 months ago and kept fighting, because Kira was somewhere in that building and these beings wanted to hurt her. By the time Vraxian security arrived, Marcus was standing amid 6 unconscious Telnari, blood running from multiple wounds but still ready to fight. Where are the others? He asked the lead guard. What others? This is a distraction, Marcus said, certainty filling him. Small force, lots of noise. They want us focused here while the real team... His eyes widened. The spaceport. They're going for the ships. He was running again before anyone could stop him. His instincts proved right. Near his ship, a group of Telnari were trying to plant explosives. If they destroyed the vessels, no one could pursue when they grabbed Kira. "Hey!" Marcus shouted. "Get away from my ride!" The Telnari turned, and Marcus recognized their leader, a scarred warrior whose picture he'd seen in security briefings. Keshatar, an extremist who believed hybrid children were abominations. "The human guardian," Keshatar said with disgust. "You should have stayed on your backwater station." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But then who would kick your ass?" Keshatar moved faster than Marcus expected, closing the distance in a blink. His crystalline blade caught Marcus across the chest, sending him spinning. Marcus rolled with the impact, came up firing with a weapon he'd taken from the previous fight. The battle was brutal. Keshatar was skilled, experienced, and driven by fanatical hatred. Marcus was wounded, exhausted, and outmatched. But he was also human. And humans had a long history of winning fights they shouldn't. Marcus let Keshatar push him back toward his ship, let the Telnari think he was winning. Then, at just the right moment, he activated the ship's anti-personnel defenses, the ones he'd installed specifically for a situation like this. Stun bolts erupted from concealed ports, dropping most of the extremists instantly. But Keshatar's armor was too strong. He shrugged off the blasts and pressed his attack. "You think your tricks will save the abomination?" Keshatar snarled, his blade scoring another hit on Marcus's arm. "She will die, and the purity of both races will be preserved." "You're wrong," Marcus gasped, backing up against his ship's hull. "She's not an abomination. She's hope." "Hope?" Keshatar raised his blade for a killing blow. "What hope can a mongrel bring?" Marcus smiled, blood running down his face. "The hope that people like you will become extinct." He triggered the second surprise he'd built into his ship, a localized EMP burst designed to shut down crystalline-based technology. Keshatar's armor froze mid-swing, leaving him off balance and vulnerable. Marcus didn't hesitate. A lifetime of training took over. When Vraxian security arrived moments later, Keshatar was unconscious and Marcus was sitting on the ground trying to stop the bleeding from his various wounds. "The others?" he asked weakly. "Captured or dead," the guard captain reported. "The attack is over. Kira, safe. The Admiral has her." Marcus nodded and promptly passed out. He woke in what was obviously a medical facility, his wounds treated with technology that made human medicine look primitive. Admiral Vexara sat beside his bed, Kira sleeping in her arms. "How long?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. 2 days. You lost a lot of blood." The Admiral studied him. "The Council is impressed and somewhat terrified." "Why terrified?" "Because you took on trained Telnari warriors and won. Because you predicted their strategy when our own security didn't. Because you turned a simple transport into a warship without anyone noticing." She paused. "Because you did all this not for glory or rank, but for a child that isn't even your species." Marcus tried to sit up, winced, and settled for reaching out to touch Kira's hand. "She's mine. Species doesn't matter." "No," the Admiral agreed. "It doesn't." She was quiet for a moment. "The Council has made their decision. Your guardianship is recognized. More than that, they're granting you full citizenship and confirming your rank in our fleet." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do, because there will be other attacks, other threats, and Kira needs a father who can stand in any court, on any world, and declare his right to protect her." The Admiral's expression softened. "You've earned this, Marcus. Stop fighting it." Marcus looked at Kira, who had woken and was reaching for him with obvious delight. He carefully took her from the Admiral, holding her close despite his injuries. "Okay," he said quietly. "For her." The ceremony 3 days later was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. The entire High Council attended, along with representatives from dozens of worlds. Even a delegation of Telnari moderates was present. those who saw Kira as a bridge rather than a threat. Marcus stood in the center of the chamber, wearing a uniform that somehow managed to blend human and Vraxian military traditions. Kira was in his arms, dressed in a tiny version of ceremonial robes that made her look like a purple starlight. The Central Elder spoke, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. "Marcus Chen, you have proven yourself in ways we did not expect. You showed courage against overwhelming odds. You showed wisdom in seeing through deception. You showed devotion that transcends species and politics." "I just did what any parent would do," Marcus said. "Perhaps. But not everyone can be a parent. Not everyone has the strength." The elder gestured, and a hologram appeared, Zarathea, recorded in her final moments. Marcus's throat tightened as her voice filled the chamber. "I grant you my rank in the Vraxian fleet. By my word as heir to the House of Storms, I bind my daughter to your protection. And by my heart, I name you father to my child and keeper of my legacy." The recording ended, and the elder continued. "Commander Zarathea saw in you what we now see. You are hereby confirmed as Commander Marcus Chen of the Third Fleet, guardian of Kirathea, and member of the House of Storms." The chamber erupted in ceremonial lightning, the traditional Vraxian celebration. Kira laughed and reached for the pretty lights, and Marcus couldn't help but smile. After the ceremony, there was a reception that seemed to include half the planet. Marcus endured endless introductions, political discussions, and veiled threats from those who still opposed Kira's existence. Through it all, he kept her close, never letting his guard down. It was Admiral Vexara who finally rescued him, leading him to a quiet balcony overlooking the storm-racked landscape. "You did well," she said. "Zarathea would be proud." "Would she?" Marcus asked, exhaustion creeping into his voice. "I feel like I'm stumbling in the dark half the time." "Every parent does." The Admiral touched Kira's cheek gently. "But you're not alone. You have allies here now, friends even, and enemies. Those too, but that's life, isn't it? The question is what you do next." Marcus looked out at the alien sky, then down at Kira. "We go home, back to Omega-7. She needs stability, routine, a chance to just be a baby without all this politics. And when she's older, when she needs to learn about her heritage, then we come back, as often as needed." Marcus smiled slightly. "I modified my ship, remember? The journey's not that bad." The Admiral nodded. "A wise choice. And there's something else." "What?" "Zarathea's final words. She spoke of her heart." Marcus stiffened. "Admiral, in our culture, such words have meaning beyond the emotional. She was binding you not just as Kira's guardian, but as her chosen mate. Posthumously, yes, but still binding." The Admiral's expression was unreadable. "You are, by our law, my son-in-law." Marcus nearly dropped Kira. We never—" "I know, and I'm not suggesting anything improper, but you should understand the full weight of what you accepted. In the eyes of our people, you are Kira's father in every legal and spiritual sense, and you are under the protection of the House of Storms." "I don't know what to say." "Say nothing. Just continue doing what you're doing." The Admiral smiled, a rare expression. "Love her. Protect her. Teach her about both her peoples. That's all any of us can ask." As if understanding she was being discussed, Kira reached up and patted Marcus's face with one tiny hand. Then she yawned enormously and snuggled against his chest. "I think that's our cue to go," Marcus said softly. The journey back to Omega-7 was uneventful, almost anticlimactic after everything that had happened. Marcus spent the time telling Kira stories, playing with her and thinking about the future. When they finally docked at the familiar station, Sarah was waiting with a medical team she absolutely didn't need to bring. "Just checking," she said, running scanners over both of them. "You can't blame me for being worried. You left with a baby and came back with a baby and a noble title." "Don't remind me," Marcus groaned. "The paperwork alone is going to kill me." "Poor Commander Storm Guardian," Sarah teased. "How will you ever manage?" "One day at a time," Marcus said, looking at Kira. "Just like any parent." Over the following weeks, life settled into a new routine. Marcus continued his work as a mechanic, but now with the backing of the Vraxian fleet. Ships came from across the sector, their captains wanting their vessels serviced by the human who'd fought off 2 sets of attackers and lived to tell about it. Kira grew rapidly, her hybrid nature meaning she developed faster than either human or Vraxian babies. She took her first steps at 8 months, spoke her first word at 9, it was Dad, which made Marcus cry, and showed signs of electrical abilities by her first birthday. Through it all, Marcus was there. He learned to braid her hair in traditional Vraxian patterns. He taught her human lullabies and Telnari meditation techniques. He built her toys that could withstand her increasing strength and installed rubber padding throughout the workshop after she started accidentally shocking things. And sometimes, late at night when Kira was asleep, he'd talk to Zarathia's picture. "I think we're doing okay," he'd say. "She laughed for 5 minutes today because she figured out how to make her toys float with static electricity." "You would have been so proud." The picture never answered, of course. But sometimes Kira would stir in her sleep and make a sound that reminded him so much of her mother that his heart would ache. One evening, as Marcus was teaching Kira to count in 3 different languages, Admiral Vexara called with an unexpected message. "We've received a proposal," she said without preamble, "from the Telnari moderate faction. They want to meet Kira, to acknowledge her as legitimate." Marcus's first instinct was to refuse, but he looked at Kira, who was trying to eat her counting blocks, and sighed. "When?" "They're suggesting neutral ground. Station Omega-7, actually. They say the human who stood against extremists of both races deserves the honor of hosting peace talks." Peace talks. That's what they're calling it. The first step toward ending the Cold War, because of Kira, because of what she represents. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "What do you think?" "I think my daughter chose better than she knew," the Admiral replied. "The decision is yours, Commander." After the call ended, Marcus sat with Kira on the floor of the workshop, watching her play. She was getting bigger every day, her purple skin now showing the faint crystalline patterns that were her Telnari heritage. Her eyes still held that impossible mix of gold and silver, but now they also held intelligence and curiosity and a mischievous streak that was entirely her own. "What do you think, little Storm?" Marcus asked. "Ready to change the galaxy?" Kira's response was to shock him lightly and giggle at his surprised yelp. "I'll take that as a yes," Marcus said, rubbing his tingling fingers. "Your mom wanted you to be a bridge. Maybe it's time to start building." He looked out the workshop window at the stars beyond, the same stars that had brought Zarathia crashing into his life. Somewhere out there, 2 civilizations waited to see what would become of one small child and her stubborn human guardian. "No pressure," Marcus muttered, then scooped Kira up and spun her around until she shrieked with laughter. "But we've got this, right? We're family, and family sticks together." Kira patted his face with both hands, her touch gentle despite her growing strength. "Dada," she said clearly. "Love." Marcus held her close, thinking of a dying commander's last words, of promises made and kept, of hearts given freely across the vast gulf of space and species. "Love you too, little Storm," he whispered, "forever and always." Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of those who traveled between them. But in a cluttered workshop on a backwater station, a human mechanic and his alien daughter were writing a new chapter in galactic history, one diaper change at a time.